Welcome back, drawing buddies, and this week we are going to draw Afro Samurai vs Jinno from pencils to inks to colors. So come along for the draw. I just learned something new today, actually. I did not know Afro Samurai was a manga. So just shows you how out of touch I am with these things. It was from 1998 to 2002. I just remember seeing the cartoon on Spike TV and going, whoa, that is a sweet-ass anime. So see, I learned something new today, and maybe you will too, watching me draw this thing. So it starts out like all the other ones, just a sketch, and I was going to just do Afro by himself doing a cool-ass swing, but I decided to do a little versus with Jinno, because who doesn't want to draw the teddy bear samurai? I mean, he's the coolest looking character design come out of anime in a long time. I mean, there's others, and I'm sure there's some I haven't seen, but for me, it's a great design. So I wanted to draw that too. So I decided that the afro that I was standing on the ground looking down at would also make a good jumping pose, so we went with that. And now that I know that Afro Samurai was a manga, I am going to have to hunt that down because I'm sure the art is freaking amazing in it. And one thing about any kind of comic or manga or pretty much anything that has amazing art in it, you could always learn something from it. And since I'm on a mission to get more fluid and less stiff, I think Afro Samurai would be a great starting point, or not a starting point, but a good reference point for that as far as the poses go. Because if you look at the covers and if you look at the animation, you know, some of the proportions are really, really wonky. He's really long and lanky at times. His face sometimes looks scrunched up or whatever, but it's always fluid and it's always moving. So that's something that I want to get better at. So once I'm done doing this voiceover, I'm going to look into seeing where I could get that, and maybe if I can find it digitally to buy somewhere, because I'd like to do it the legal way, because I think this one will be worth it. The good news is I watched the anime and the movie while I was drawing this. The bad news is I got the memory of my mother, so I only remember the main plot points and I'll get all the names wrong and everything. But it starts out, that came out in 2007 by the way, for those wondering, and it was on Spike TV. I just remember seeing commercials for it and say, what the hell is that? A freaking anime with Samuel L. Jackson voicing a samurai and his crazy imaginary friend. How could I not want to read that? Oh, and for this drawing, I also decided I wanted a big hand in the foreground. I wanted layers to it. So I drew the hand on a separate layer just to get it right and put it where I want. And then attaching it to the body is pretty simple at this point because it's just sticking out of a big old sleeve. But anyway, back to that. It was on Spike TV. I saw commercials and I'm like, oh, that's something I gotta watch because that's going to be pretty great. So I did, and it was. And then I was hoping for another one, and they did another movie, and then that was the end of it. Unfortunately, it would have been nice if they did a couple more, but you know, sometimes you just got to take what you could get of a good thing, appreciate that it exists, and enjoy what you have. Same thing with Cowboy Bebop. Would I like more Cowboy Bebop? Sure. Do I think it'd be any good? Probably not, because it'd be done by other people, and people who don't really care much about it, and people are just looking for a cash grab, and they would just, you know, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't capture the magic a second time, you know? Let Spike rest. Alright, enough of my mad ramblings. Let's get into at least a synopsis of what the show was about. Basically, Afro Samurai is a child. Let's go back a little. It exists in a world where people fight for the right to have the #1 headband. And if you have the #1 headband, you're pretty much a god among men. Nobody could touch you. The only person who can challenge you or try to fight you or try to take your place is the guy with the #2 headband. But the problem with having the #2 headband is anybody could challenge you at any time to a fight to the death. Because it's a fight to the death that gets you the headband. You have to kill the wearer. Although in the they do show other headbands with other numbers, so I don't know exactly how the hierarchy works. They don't really get into it. Especially when they get to Justice's cavern at the end of the first season and you see all the bodies of all the other headband wearers except for Afro because he had #2. Alright, at the beginning of Afro Samurai episode 1, Afro's a little kid and his dad has the #1 headband. And so a challenger approaches, and that's Justice, the number 2. And after a long, drawn-out fight, Justice defeats Afro's father and beheads him. Afro, of course, is traumatized. He actually takes his head along with him and the number 2 headband. And he swears that he's going to get vengeance on Justice eventually. And then he runs into the little kid Afro. He runs into a bunch of, travelers and everything. And they take the number 2 headband away from him and laugh and thinks he's crazy because he's carrying his dad's head around with him, which of course he's crazy. He's carrying his father's head around with him. All right, another drawing tangent here. I am looking at the sketches here and putting it all together, and now I'm cleaning it up. But my original Jinno head that I see in this sketch here, I kind of like it better than the final one, and that's kind of a problem I see. I overthink things, and I change things that don't need to be changed sometimes. Because if I just stuck with that Jinno head, it would have saved me a lot of time and aggravation. And it would have looked just as good, if not better. I mean, I don't know if it would have been better because I didn't follow through. But, So another lesson I want to impart onto anybody watching this who cares is to not overthink things. And if it looks good, just stick with it. Now, this Afro face, that needed to go. But the Jinno head, definitely could have kept that one. It had more direction towards where it's going. Yeah, I just liked it better. But anyway, so Afro, after roaming around for a while, I'm doing this out of order, by the way, because the show has flashbacks between adult Afro and young Afro. And so Afro ends up meeting Jinno, and Jinno thinks he has spunk, and he takes him back to his master, and his master is a guy who's basically just teaching kids how to be sword fighters and how to be, good kids, men, women, and teaching them how to get through the world. And using sword fighting is kind of like a discipline. And eventually, it turns out, Afro's always looking for the number 2 headband. Every time he hears a rumor about it, he goes looking, and he goes getting into fights and starting trouble. And he's even killing people as a teenager. I mean, Afro definitely has a bloodlust to him. And so it turns out eventually that his master, the sword fighter, he has the number 2 headband, and they find out because a bunch of bandits come looking for it because they want to get it so they could challenge the number 1, and they end up pretty much killing everybody in the school. And Afro, after they defeat the bad guys, the sword fighting thing, I think it's Afro, and Jinno's left but he's injured, and the master, Afro, asks if it's true, and the master says yes. I was trying to keep that hidden forever so these mindless violence and fighting would stop. So Afro, of course, bloodlusted because he wants to get the justice for killing his father. He decides he needs to take the number 2 headband from his master, and they fight to the death, and he kills him. And he gets the number 2 headband. But that also upsets Jinno, because Jinno now blames Afro for the death of all the students and this master, and how could he betray them all like that after they took him in and they gave him a home. Although that's not really how it happened, but that's how Jinno sees it. And you think Jinno dies and you go on. But throughout this, Afro's going, basically he's just heading towards justice and trying to find out where he is and pretty much murdering everybody who gets in his way or murdering anybody who challenges him. And the sword fights are slick. I mean, the action in this anime are smooth, they're fluent, they're slick. I don't know if they were still hand animating at this time. It was 2007, but I'm guessing it's a hybrid. They definitely probably colored it digitally, and there's definitely some small CGI effects in it that kind of add to it. They don't really take away from it. So Afro, basically, it's basically a video game movie. It's just boss fight after boss fight after boss fight. There's like a group of 7 thugs who want the headband, and they all go after him. And they have like a team that's supposed to be able to take down Afro through technology, but they also have, I think, an American and a Russian fighter who they decide are worthy, but then another scientist invents like a robot Afro, because Afro finds a woman when he's injured, and she nurses him back to health, and they sort of fall in love, but not really. But she was really a plant who was there to steal his memories while he slept so they could program a Afro droid to fight Afro and beat Afro, because it's got his knowledge, but it's faster because it moves with the speed of a computer. But she decides, no, I don't want to be a part of this, and she stabs her phone, and they kill her. And there's a lot going on in this story now that I think about it. And I hope it's making sense, because when I talk about these things, I usually have somebody to talk to and bounce off of to keep me linear. But here I could just go any way I want, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. So I also was going for like a mood with this one, so I went with a lot of black. And for those who were paying attention to the other videos, I talk about how I've been drawing a lot of green people later, and I really should not be drawing so many green people. Well, I was sketching the other day, I was having trouble coming up with something, and nothing was looking right, and I just kept going at it because I'm stubborn, and I didn't want to like just have a wasted day of getting nothing done. And I ended up with 2 sketches that I actually like to start from. One of them is Supergirl in Crypto. It's kind of my standard thing. She's just kind of floating there, giving him a dog treat. It's cute. Nothing exciting, but I think it's well drawn and smooth, and it kind of goes along the lines of what I'm reaching at for smoother action, being less stiff and all that stuff. And the other one is the turtle I've been saying I want to draw, the Donatello on a ledge. And I really like it, and I think I'm going to work on that when I'm done getting this video finished and put together and uploaded, because it's going to be a full scene. It's going to be Donatello on a ledge, it's going to have a full background, I'm going to draw the bricks in the building. I'm not going to cheat and manipulate a photo to look like a drawn background like I've done in some other ones. We're going to go full bore on this one. And I might be able to add other turtles to it in the long run. So that might be something that happens with that one, like every month or every couple months or every couple weeks, who the hell knows. I will add another turtle to that drawing. And I don't know if that'll be the main weekly video, because I won't have to draw the background. I'll just have to draw the turtle. But it might be like a supplemental drawing, because I'm not going to do them all at once to cram into a week, because I'll never get the whole video done and ready for that week. But yeah, I gave in. I'm drawing another green guy. You know, Rogue had the green costume, Hulk was green, Bride was green. Everybody's green. Why is there so many green comic characters? So yeah, the turtle is coming. And as for this one, as you can see, the pencils are pretty much done already. I also got to work on getting my pencils cleaner, because, you know, if you got to ink your own work, whatever, these pencils are good enough, you know, they're nothing fancy, but they get the job done, because you know what you did and you know what has to be what, because you're drawing it. I mean, if I stepped away from this thing for a week, I might get a little confused on things, but, you know, I got to clean up my pencils. But with that, the pencils are done, and we are going to move on to the inks. And the inks are my favorite part of this. See, I tried a new texture thing, and I love it, which means I'll overuse it a lot. But now let's get on to inking Afro Samurai. Another thing I want to work on as far as inking goes is not to be so heavy-handed. My inks are very, very thick, and they're very blocky. And it looks really cool for some things. But for some things, I think it's a little too much, so I got to work on, you know, just a little bit of the best of both worlds. And I also got to work on drawing circles, because I never get them right. I should just use the circle tool and layer it a couple times, but, you know, live and learn. Also, I believe I moved that ear to the front of Jinno because it looks terrible. So back to Afro. The American guy and the Russian guy and Robot Afro fight to see who gets to fight Afro. And the robot wins, and I believe it kills the Russian and the American, so they're out of the picture, which comes back to bite the other team of assassins, because Afro just cuts through them like they're paper. And then he fights the robot one, and it's looking grim. But then Afro has a flashback to something his master told him to be unpredictable and just let his movements flow without thinking. Because if you're unpredictable, then nobody can follow your path. And so he does that, and being unpredictable defeats the robot, because the robot is just a program. He's programmed with the thoughts and memories of Afro, but he doesn't make his own decisions. So Afro cuts down the robot, and then he moves on to justice. I think one of the other anime ones before, I mentioned that one of the ones I watched when I was younger, my late teens and everything, when I was buying anime videotapes, was the Serial Experiments of Lane, and I suggested that you guys watch it because it's just a really weird techno anime. In fact, I remember not even really understanding all of it, so I kind of wanted to go back and watch it again. And I remember it used to be on the Funimation app, so when I told you guys you should watch it, I figured it was on Crunchyroll since they absorbed Funimation. But it is not available on Crunchyroll. So then I'm like, alright, let's type it into Prime Video. So I typed Serial Experiments of Lane into Prime Video. And I figure even if you can't watch it for free, usually you could buy these things for like a season or rent an episode for $3, which I really didn't want to do, and I probably wasn't going to do. I would just see if there's a DVD or something available. But anyway, let's get back to that. So I type it into Prime Video. And, in the search it pops up in the text, so I hit it. But there's nothing. It doesn't say it's unavailable. It doesn't show a thumbnail. It literally shows absolutely nothing about the Serial Experiments of Lane, like it never existed. So I'm like, well, that's freaking weird. So then I do what I always do when I can't find something that I know exists. I go to eBay, and that's always a mistake. So I go on eBay, and you can get DVDs for like 19, 20, 30 bucks. There's Blu-rays. I think those were like 40. And there is this weird action figure. It looks like an old Mego figure. I don't know if you guys know what a Mego figure is, but they were the big action figures in the 70s, and they basically just came with cloth clothes, and they were bigger. They were probably a good 6, 7, maybe even 8 inches. And the original ones were, I think his name was Captain Action, and he was just, came with Captain Action outfit, and you would buy different clothes for him. You'd buy a Batman outfit, you'd buy a Superman outfit, a Fantastic Four, well, Mr. Fantastic outfit, whatever. Spider-Man, and you put a different head on them too on some of them. But then they started having their own. They had Star Trek. They were basically like Pops almost. You had a Mego figure for everything. They had Star Trek. They had comic characters. They had TV show characters. They were pretty cool. But anyway, there's a Lane figure that was kind of like that didn't even look really cool. And that thing, people asked like $1,000 for it. Good thing I don't really want that. I never saw it when I was buying the things. But the thing that really caught me off guard was the VHS tapes, the ones that I was buying. I was buying them for like 20, 30 bucks a piece so that I could watch the series, and I had them all. I think there's only 3 of them, 3 or 4. And those are selling for like $400 a tape. And I'm like, that's insane, because if you know anything about VHS tapes, is they degrade over time, and they don't really last. So I was like, wow. But then I also remembered I gave all of my tapes away to a friend of mine, because when I decided videotapes weren't a thing I was going to have anymore and I moved over to DVDs, I was going to throw them away. And a friend of mine's like, I'll take your anime movies. I said, all right, Phil, here you go. I just doxed Phil, by the way. And I gave them to Phil. But the good thing is, I do know that Phil, I see him every once in a while, does not throw things away. So he still has those videotapes somewhere. So they did not end up in a landfill. So maybe someday Phil will impart them onto a collector. But Phil's kind of a collector of everything. So good on him. He has my Lane videotapes that are $475 each. That's ridiculous. That people would pay something that much for those, because, you could get them on DVD and Blu-ray, unless they're bootlegs and they look terrible, which I'll find out, because I think I'm going to order a set of Blu-ray. And I also apologize for telling you to watch that, because it's not an easy show to find, apparently, and that kind of sucks. So, as you can see, I didn't like this hand. I started to redraw it. I changed the thumb still because it's kind of weird and it would not work like that. But, yeah. So sometimes when you think you're done with the pencils, you're not really done with the pencils, because you totally forgot to draw Jinno's hand. But we get there. And then, just as you think the samurai adventure's over and he's gonna go and fight justice and exact his revenge, Jinno shows up. When he shows up, he's got the big teddy bear head, and it looks all sad and crazy, and he's all robotic under there, because apparently Jinno didn't die. And then some crazy scientist took him in and rebuilt him as kind of like this cyborg, because Afro Samurai takes place in an interesting world where it's like feudal Japan. Everything is still, it's still the old Japanese buildings and the samurai code, and Nobody drives and everybody walks from place to place, but they have cell phones. They could turn people into cyborgs. They have guns. They have missile launchers. They have targeting systems. They have night vision. You never see anybody driving a car, though, which is weird because part 2 literally starts out with Jinno on a motorcycle. It's the first time you see a vehicle in the show. I mean, Afro Samurai, he's literally walking from place to place. He doesn't drive, he doesn't get a motorcycle, he doesn't even have a horse. And everybody else is doing the same thing. You never see anybody pull up in a car, not even like a weird retro futuristic one or an old school Cadillac or something. They're just walking around doing their thing. And so Jinno shows up, and he's just crying because he's filled with sadness over what Afro did, and he can't stop, and he killed, the students and his friends and their friends, and he has to exact revenge. And they fight, and of course Afro wins, and he thinks he kills Jinno, and he moves on. And then he has to fight Justice. After a drawn-out fight, and Justice explains that he is now a god among men because he uses the #1 headband, and he is unstoppable. And he realized that to keep the world in check and to stop all the mindless violence and fighting, he had to get all the headbands. So there's all the skulls and the bodies of all the other headband wearers, #3, 4, 20, 30, 10, which is weird because I figured it was just 1 and #2, and everybody just was out for #2 because anybody could fight #2. So what the hell's the point in #3? #3 doesn't get you the right to fight #2. But, these are semantics, I guess. And Justice, you think he wins, but in the end, Afro pulls through and he slices Justice into pieces. And he wins the #1 headband. Then it fades out and it cuts to a little time in the future, and Jinno's back, and they're going to fight again. And that's the end. And there's also a little teaser of Justice at the end that he didn't die, even though Afro cut him into like 15 pieces. But, anime, what can you do? Yeah, if you can see drawing this, like on Jinno and on his head and on his robe, I start putting these little dash lines all over the place, really thin. And it kind of gives it a nice fabric and a worn look. And if you do it in certain ways, it also looks like they've been fighting and they're worn up and damaged. This is more just a fabric style that I used it for here. But I really like it. And the problem with really liking something is I overdo it. I think I already sort of alluded to that earlier in the video that I liked it. So we'll see what I use it on. You won't see it in the next video because the next video is probably the vampire video. But I drew that before I drew this, so I didn't know the whole hatch line trick. But on the vampire, I tried something different with coloring. I don't really love gradients, but after I colored the vampire the way I normally would, I spent some time screwing around with just adding a light gradient to the undercolor. Well, actually over everything, just to see how it popped and gave dimension, because that's how a lot of this stuff is colored anyway, as far as the animations and the cartoons, and even a lot of the painters, digital painters who do this stuff, even though I didn't even try to digital paint. That's just not my thing, and so many people do it now, I think it's a bit generic looking. So it's not something I'm interested in. But yeah, I like it, and I like trying different things, and I like the way it worked on the vampire too, so that's something I might throw into future drawings. I just didn't think it was necessary for this one. It didn't really need it. But sometimes when I'm drawing something, I love the pose, I love the action, I love the character, but it looks a little flat. So that little bit of a gradient that you can barely even tell it's there, it's more subliminal, although I did kind of overdo it a little in the vampire. It just kind of adds a whole thing to it. And I think on the Donatello one, I might throw a little of that on, or I might go back to the Ben-Day dots or something. I don't know. This is a learning experience for me. I'm trying to learn new things with all these drawings, and hopefully take you guys along on the journey of learning these things with me. So for the few of you who are actually watching these videos all the way through, and those who are actually here for the drawing, which I don't know how many of you there are, if any, but I hope my trying different things and experimenting helped you too to try something new and different you didn't think of, because pretty much all my life I've just drawn black and white. I hated coloring. I still don't love it. If I could just draw everything in black and white, I would be very happy. But, so I'm learning new coloring techniques while I'm doing these because, I've been coloring the same way for a long time. So it's time I sucked it up and I started learning again. Because if you're not learning anymore as an artist, you're stagnant and you're not getting anywhere. I also don't use a script when I make these videos. I know, shocking, right? You're probably telling the first 5 seconds that I'm just winging it. But I like the free flow. I like talking about just whatever is on my mind at the moment. And sometimes it doesn't even relate to the drawing, but I think it makes it more, approachable and human. But again, I don't know. So let me know. But I was thinking about today when I was getting ready to do this because I was going to do it a little earlier, but then I had to go run some errands and take care of some things. And then I finally got home and I started doing the whole Afro thing. And I was thinking, I wonder if I did this first thing when I woke up in the morning like I planned, if it would be completely different or if it would be pretty similar. Because I knew I was going to mention the lane thing because I looked that up last night. And I knew I was going to talk about Afro Samurai, but everything else is just like, what's on my mind while thinking about Afro Samurai. Because from what I've read, most of these people making these YouTube channels, they spend a long time writing the episode that they're working on. And I just don't see the value in that when I'm drawing a picture and talking about the art. Because, I'm not even thinking a bit about the picture before I draw. I decide, okay, today I'm going to draw Afro Samurai. Oh, it'd be cool if he's fighting Jinno. Cool. What's the pose going to be? I don't know. Let's sketch something. And then I just go from there. That's why sometimes the sketching part takes so long, because I have no idea what I want it to look like. I'm just like, all right, I need to draw Afro Samurai, because that's what popped into my head. In fact, I didn't show it, but originally I was going to do like the profile of Afro holding the sword with the wispy headband and everything, and that was going to be it. But I'm like, nah, I do too much of that. Let's do some action. And so here we are. I also noticed that pretty much the main thing in my life is that I just kind of wing everything. I never plan anything. I never have real goals or real purpose or any end goal for what I'm doing. Even with this YouTube thing, I have no idea what I'm doing or where I'm going. I just know that I'm enjoying the ride and I have no intention of stopping anytime soon. I'm just going to keep chugging along and drawing these pictures and talking to all you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the ride, and girls, by the way, because I looked at the audience thing, and there's a good percentage of women who are watching this. I don't know how long they're watching it for, but they're tuning in for long enough for YouTube to register it anyway. And I just, like hanging out with you guys, so I hope you stick around. I hope we grow together, and I hope we get to a point where, there's more than 3 of us having a good time. So yeah, my buddy Sif, he called me Monday? Was it Monday? I don't know. Sometime this day. It was Monday because I didn't have my babysitting duties. And he really wants me to go live. And he thinks that's where everything starts to gel and come together. And I want to go live, but it's also intimidating because here, if I screw up a thought or I don't like the way something's going, I could stop and start over again. If I go live, I gotta talk to whoever's there. Could be nobody. I could be talking to an empty room. But you have to go through it, and you have to truck on through, and you have to put in the time and treat it like you have a full audience. And that's intimidating. I mean, I was in a band, and I've played live, and I've played to hundreds of people. I think I even played a couple shows that had a couple thousand people there, and I've played to 3 people. And when you do something like that, you got to put in the whole show, give out the full energy. But part of going live is you got comments and something to react to. And nobody's there. I won't have that. It's scary. Plus, he wants me to build this whole stage and set design and make a show and have a guy behind a desk. And, I want to do all that. But I think I need to start small and just push the live button and go and draw something with you guys, because I figured all that out, how to draw and get it to stream to YouTube and everything with the audio and all that fun stuff. But so I think when I do go live, which will hopefully be by the end of September, maybe early October, maybe before that, maybe tomorrow, who the hell knows. It's just going to be simple. I'll have a couple, things if I got to take a break or I got to go get a drink or something, get up for a second. I'll have a be back in a second thing, and I'll have some music to play or whatever. But, I think it'll evolve. Like, I want to make my little talking monkey guy in the corner of the screen. That looks like it'll be fun. So I want to add that into the show and all that stuff. But I think we're going to start small, and I'm just going to pick a character and draw it. And while I'm doing it, maybe one of you guys could convince me to change it into something else. Who knows? It'll be a community thing. I'm not going to rule it with an iron fist. If I decide I'm going to draw Wolverine and somebody's like, it'd be really cool if you drew Ultraman. And I'm like, yeah, Ultraman would be much cooler than Wolverine, and you're a captive audience, so you have to watch me draw it. Because, who's going to want to see somebody draw Ultraman? Or actually, I meant to see Captain Ultra, because he is the coolest nobody hero you ever seen. And his costume is awful. And if you've been paying attention to anything that I do here, I like things that are kind of silly and a little ridiculous. And Captain Ultra is the epitome of that as far as Marvel goes. I might actually do a short video on him. I'll just do like a quick thing, maybe 15-20 minutes, and bang him out quick. Because he's cool, and everybody should know who Captain Ultra is. So anyway, the whole point of all that is I do plan on going live. I hope anybody who watches these videos far enough in to hear me talk about this will join us when we go live, because it'll be fun, and I hope it'll be fun. It'll be nerve-wracking for me, but hopefully it'll be fun for you and it won't show. And that will be happening sooner than later. I know I've said that months ago, but I'm seriously thinking it has to happen now. So it will. And now, on to Afro Samurai 2. That was a movie. It was an hour and 40 minutes long, I think. And, we're done with the inks. So we'll pause that for a second, and we're on to the colors. I really like the colors. The background I struggled with a bit, because first I wanted all black, then I decided on a color, then I'm like, should it be bright and blue, like a sky, or should it be dark? And eventually I went with the dark. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Afro Samurai 2, like I said, starts out, Afro's just carving little figures, and he's just done fighting. He got his revenge. He's done. He doesn't want to do this anymore. He's got the #1 headband and the other headband, so nobody could really come after him. And he's resigned to his fate. And then Jinno shows up. He doesn't say anything. He just rides in on a motorcycle, and he wrecks Afro, because Afro doesn't fight anymore, and he's not ready for this. He's just done. And Afro beats the hell out of Afro. They burn his place down, and he throws Afro at a woman's feet. And it turns out the woman is Jinno's little sister from back in the day. And she hates Afro as much as Jinno does. But she is so blinded by hate that she just wants to torture Afro to the point where, he's just broken and no more. So her plan is to revive Afro's father, who has been dead for a long time, because he died at the beginning of episode 1 of the first season, when Afro was a little kid. And she's going to resurrect him. And she's going to use him to make Afro suffer. And so she takes the #1 headband, and I think the #2. And she just disappears. So she kind of broke the rules. She stole the #1 headband without being the #2. But Afro, being a samurai, has to follow the rules, so he's going to look for the #2. Actually, I lied a little bit. Afro Samurai 2 actually started on a bridge where Afro's crossing the bridge. He's got a basket on his head so nobody would recognize him. And these other 2 people are crossing the bridge. And there's an old samurai tale, old Japanese thing. I don't remember the exact details of it, but it has something to do with 2 samurai trying to cross a bridge, and neither could get by the other. And I don't know. They fight. They don't fight. They come up with something. I don't know. I don't feel like looking it up. But it's kind of like a play on that, except for, they fight, and Afro cuts these people down, and then more people realize it's Afro, so they go after him. And it kind of doesn't fit with the whole intro of the story, because, he's retired and broken in the intro. So I don't know. But that's how it really started. And coloring Afro, if you look at the stills online and you look at the show, it's very muted. It's almost black and white. A lot of the promo stuff is black and white. And I kind of wanted to do that, but I also wanted the color. So I decided just to color it. I didn't use bright colors. I used more muted versions of the colors. And then when I was done with the base colors, I throw kind of like a gray layer over it. And then with layer modes and everything, it kind of dulls it down and pulls everything back and brings it all together. I think it's called toning. It's where it gives everything a similar feel so the scene blends in with each other. And so we did that. We did some toning on this so that everybody fit the same space, and it took out some of the color and it made it more that homogenized black and white look that the promotional art that I was looking at and the cartoon has. Now that Jinno's sister took the #1 headband, and Jinno actually doesn't talk. He's almost like a robot at this point. He has no feelings, no soul, no nothing. He's just acts. So, of course, Afro's imaginary friend shows back up, and he tells him, "Yo, man, we could just let this go. We don't have to go after your dead daddy. You did your vengeance thing. You won." But Afro's like, can't let it go. He's like, "No, that's my father, and I have to let him rest in peace." And he has a samurai code, so there you go. And so he cleans himself up. He goes, he has his sword all sharpened up and ready to go. But the swordsmith tells him, the sword is shiny, but is the soul of the warrior. And Afro, he's broken. He doesn't want to do this. So he's heading out to find the #2, and his legend precedes him. So the first place he shows up, he's surrounded by a bunch of people whose family members he's killed. He's killed the brothers, he's killed the fathers, he's killed the sons. And the people who confront him are not warriors. They're just people who lost somebody, and they're mad about it. And they want Afro to pay. Kind of like Afro wanted justice to pay for killing his father and drove him on the killing spree to avenge him that it did. So these people, they attack, and Afro doesn't kill anybody. He sort of takes pity on them. He just knocks them all down and out, and he never unsheaths his sword. And he just leaves, and everybody's like, "We will get you someday, Afro." And he's like, when you're ready, come for me. And then he goes to the 7 soldiers from the first one who are all catted. They're messed up because he really did a number on them in the first one. And then one of the brothers of them says, "I will give you the information of where the #2 is, but you gotta beat me." And so Afro pulls out a sword like, "Yeah, no problem." Like, no, in a game of chance. So he plays him in a game of dice, and he wins, but of course he's cheating. And Afro sees right through that, so he cuts through, and he's like, "All right, now you tell me what I need to know, or I'm going to kill you." So the guy's a coward, and he gives Afro the information he needs to find the man with the #2 headband. And on the way to get it, he's on a bridge again, and there's somebody running holding a child. He's kidnapping a child. And that triggers a little flashback into Afro with justice and killing his dad and everything. So he stops the kidnapper by cutting him down. He cuts him in half, saves the kid. Then the kid's father shows up, he thanks him, and Afro knows right away. He glances over and he sees that the #2 headband's wrapped around the thing. It's hidden. The guy's not showing it, but he has it. So he likes the guy, he meets him, and the imaginary friend's like, "It's a shame you gotta kill this dude." And the guy has the #2, but he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to kill people, but that's also why he's keeping it, because he wants the line to stop with him. He figures if he could keep it and nobody else could get it, then nobody else dies. But Afro wants to save his daddy and avenge his daddy, his father, so he obviously has to fight the guy. And he almost loses. The guy almost beats Afro. But during that fight, Afro gets his fire back, and he cuts him down. He wins, but of course he does it in front of this other child, and the kid is like angry, and he tries to go after Afro, and Afro just like, "Whenever you're ready, we're good." And there's a mildly disturbing scene where Jinno and his sister show up, and they have Afro's dad's head that's alive because whatever they're doing to bring him back is working, but he can't challenge him yet because he doesn't have the headband. This happened before he fought the guy on the bridge. The guy for the headband and the kid, sorry. A little out of order here, and that's pretty disturbing. But now Afro has the #2, and he is heading, to save his dad. And he's walking through the desert, and his imaginary friend, Afro, with the white hair and Sam Jackson's voice being all sarcastic and funny, the comic relief, the stand-in for the audience part, the guy that all the exposition comes from. he's like, yeah, this is cool and all, but are you gonna do anything about that kid that's following us? So the little kid who Afro just took his father down for the headband is following them, and he passes out in the desert, and he's like, oh good, we can leave the little guy to die. But Afro, has compassion, he knows what happened, he lived through this. So he puts the kid under a tree and leaves him some water, and he goes about his business. And he finally some other stuff happens, but then he gets to the thing and he's gonna fight Jinno's sister. Well, he actually fights Jinno, but that doesn't really get him anywhere. And then the father comes out, and the father wrecks Afro, and Afro can't fight his father. And his father is bigger, he's stronger, he's meaner. He's not his father anymore. He's just a zombie guy that looks like his father. And he kills Afro. Afro dies. But when Afro dies, Jinno, who is in a catatonic state the whole time, he kind of wakes up, and he goes back to the childhood with him and Afro, and he starts reliving that part of his life. So he jumps in to help save Afro. So he starts fighting the dad, and the dad rips him apart too. He kills him. He kills the sister, and they're both lying there on the ground dying, and the sister apologizes for dragging Jinno into this. She just wanted revenge, and Jinno's like, I'm sorry, I let everybody down, and they both die too. But then sparks start flying out of his cyborg body, and some of the sparks hit Afro, and they revive Afro. And Afro sees what happens, and he finally hits him that it's not his dad, and he has to, fight for himself and his friends and for the world, basically. So Afro snaps, and he fights, and he whoops his dad. Afro is the #1 headband wearer again. But this time he's not going to make the same mistake, and he's going to, handle his responsibilities and treat this with the respect it deserves. And of course the kid shows up again, and the kid he wants to fight Afro. And Afro just looks at him because he knows, the kid doesn't stand a chance. And he hands the kid the #2 headband. And he literally says to the kid this time, he's like, hey, whenever you're ready and you want to come for it, I'll be waiting for you. And that's pretty much where this series ends. Except there's another tease of justice at the end. But nothing ever happens with that. I don't know if it happens in the anime. That's why I'm going to get them. Not the anime, the manga. That's why I'm going to get them and check them out. And that's it. That's the whole Afro Samurai thing. Yeah, so it's not groundbreaking. I mean, the story is nothing super original. It's just a straightforward revenge tale. But the world they build is beautiful, and the art is beautiful, and the animation is beautiful. I mean, it's brutal, but it's beautiful. And it's fluent, and it moves, and the fights are stylistic, and they're slick, and they do their job. So, as far as that goes, it's fantastic. As far as story goes, if you've seen one revenge story, you've seen them all, and that's pretty much what it is. But, as far as character designs from Jinno to Afro to the whole look of the show, that's something unique, and that's something that's worth watching it for. So, that's the whole review on Afro Samurai. It's not really a review, I just basically did a quick retelling of the whole thing. But the review is, if you're looking for a great story, you're not getting one. It's a video game. They fight through the bosses till they get to the end boss and they win. But as far as the style goes and the look of the world and the animation style, that's what you're watching Afro Samurai for. And, Sam Jackson as a samurai, you can't go wrong with that. Although most of the talking is the imaginary friend's sidekick, who's hilarious. So, watch Afro Samurai for the visuals, not the story. It's not as deep as something like Cowboy Bebop. Alright, so here we finally get to the background, and I wasn't sure what to do, and I cut out a lot of my trial and error, because it just wasn't worth watching. You would have spent 20 minutes just watching me switch background colors and gradients and grains, and yeah, it wasn't cool. So, I also learned how to use the speedline tool, so of course I had to try that one more time on this one. And in a way, I almost think I should have kind of left the white background and maybe put something behind it, or maybe like a light blue, because I really like the way it looks without the background, but I think the dark was the way to go on this one. So I don't regret my background choice. The only thing on this one that I wish I changed was that I kept the original Jinno head, but this one is just as good. It's just different. And here you see I was screwing around with the gray layer on top. And I also realized I never shaded Afro's pants. And I noticed I've done that in a couple drawings. Like I made prints for that show I was talking about last week. I noticed like the Batgirl drawing, I didn't add any texture to her hair. Her hair is textureless, it's just a big block of orange. Oops. So yeah, now you see I threw the gray layer over this to tone down the colors a little bit and to bring them all in line with each other so it feels like one drawing instead of two separate drawings laid on top of each other as far as the color palette goes. Yeah, I think the gray layer, the tinting layer, actually did a good job of bringing everything together. It's something I also used on the vampire drawing that's coming up. You know, I tinted it all to the same reddish hue. Yeah, it's not something every drawing needs, but the ones that do, it definitely works because it definitely brought this together and made it more cohesive than it was. So it's a little trick I'm glad I learned. Another thing, if any of you have read the Afro Samurai manga, and you know if it continues or if everything in the cartoon is actually in it or if it's completely different, let me know. I'm kind of curious because I won't get around to actually reading it for a long time. So any comments you have about it or any knowledge you have about it will help me decide if I actually, well, how soon I'll get to reading it. Because if it's mostly different, then I'll probably get to it sooner than later. So I'd appreciate that. Except for a few touch-ups here, like I forgot to color in Afro's fingernails. We are done with Afro Samurai. So once again, thanks for coming along for the draw. I hope to see you next week and do the whole like and subscribe button thing. And, you know, enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for stopping by.